Good afternoon, colleagues, dear participants, distinguished delegates, the SBI Chair, Julia Gardner, Director of Transparency Division of the Secretariat, Shihong Wan, and our panelists. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this side events of the consultative group of experts at SB 63. Today, we focus on the indicators for the nationally determined contributions, insights, and experience. NDC tracking, colleagues, as we know, is central to transparency. It allows us to see how actions translate into measurable progress under the Paris Agreement. Indicators are the bridge between ambition and accountability. As developing countries prepare and submit their first biennial transparency report, we are witnessing how the enhanced transparency framework is bringing together tracking to life through data and evidence. The CGE is also compiling examples of indicators drawn from these reports to serve as practical reference for national experts. Today's discussion will build on parties' early experiences, highlight lessons from across regions, and invite feedback on how the consultative group of experts can further support NDC tracking. If this is your first event of the CGE, you need to know that the CGE is a constituted body under the Convention and the Paris Agreement. As the CGE, we provide technical advice and support to developing countries to implement the enhanced transparency framework, as well as reporting under the Convention. We will now begin, but first, perhaps I'll introduce myself. My name is Sandra Mutswanedi. I am from South Africa, and I am the chair of the consultative group of experts. And as our panelists start to speak, they will also introduce themselves. We will begin with the opening remarks from the SBI chair, Julia, as well as the director of Transparency Division, Shihong, and myself. This will then be followed by a panel discussion where our speakers, Julia Bempa from Ghana, Lee Akai from Lebanon, as well as our two CGE members, Majid and Marcelo from Nepal and Brazil respectively, will be sharing national experiences as well as CGE perspectives on identifying and tracking NDC indicators. We will then, after that, look at the CG's ongoing support and conclude with your feedback through a short interactive session. With that, I will now invite our SBI chair, Julia, to deliver her opening remarks. Julia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Distinguished participants, our distinguished CGE chair, Sandra, Dr. Shihong Wan, Director of the Transparency Division, dear panelists and friends, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to join you for this consultative group of experts side event on NDC indicators, insights and experiences. With the enhanced transparency framework now fully operational, we are witnessing the first full cycle of biennial transparency reports, technical expert reviews and facilitative multilateral consideration of progress. At the heart of this process lies NDC tracking. Indicators are not just technical parameters, they are the foundation of accountability. They translate actions and policies into measurable progress, enabling countries to demonstrate achievement, identify gaps, and inform the next cycle of ambition. The recently released 2025 NDC synthesis report and the first BTR synthesis report showcase the growing efforts parties are making to establish robust transparency systems and identify measurable indicators for climate actions. As parties continue to implement their NDCs and prepare their second BTRs, today's exchange of experience on indicator development and use will be invaluable. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognise the CGE's ongoing efforts supporting developing countries to enhance their technical and institutional capacity for reporting and tracking progress of their climate actions. Through its guidance materials, regional workshops and hands-on support, the CGE is a cornerstone of practical capacity building under the Convention and the Paris Agreement. The CGE is well placed to provide a continuing role by helping countries use BTRs to track NDCs in a way that promotes understanding of progress. I encourage all of you to engage fully in today's event, ask questions, share insights, and maximise this unique opportunity for dialogue and learning. Let's continue working together to enhance transparency and make sure it remains a driver of ambition, action, and accountability under the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julia, for those good opening remarks. And we know that you have a busy schedule, so if you need to leave in between the session, we will understand. So with that, I would also then now like to invite Shu Hong to deliver her opening remarks. Over to you, Shu.
Thank you, Sandra, and good afternoon, dear colleagues, and dear chair of the SBI, and thank you so much for coming for this opening, despite your very busy schedule. We all know how busy you are, especially in the next 2 days. And dear panelists, it's really an honor and a huge pleasure for me to join you today for this session. Over the past few days here at COP30, there have already been quite a number of transparency events, and I believe many of you have been participating in those events. Especially yesterday, we had a highly successful ministerial dialogue on transparency that was led by COP29 and COP30 presidencies. It really demonstrates the political momentum that is required for effective ETF implementation. And as Julia just now also mentioned, the ETF right now is really into the full implementation mode. We are quite a number of countries actually have already been through the entire first ETF cycle. As of today, we have received 119 BTRs, including reports from many developing country parties. The technical expert reviews of BTRs are also in full swing. By the end of this year, we will have completed the technical reviews of 50 countries. And also tomorrow, there will be the second facilitative multilateral consideration of progress, FMCP. So I would encourage you all, if you have time, to participate in that very interactive dialogue, which showcasing parties' implementation of the Paris Agreement and their needs and capacity building needs. So as Julia also just now mentioned, tracking NDC implementation is a key element of BTRs. So the information reported is reviewed by technical experts and discussed among parties during the FMCP process. Identifying NDC indicators suited to national circumstances is essential to facilitate these processes and to strengthen national transparency systems over time. The recently released first BTR synthesis report and the 2025 NDC synthesis report highlight the growing efforts parties are making to track progress of their NDCs through enhanced transparency framework and the use of indicators. So I warmly encourage you to read these reports for further insights. The CGE plays a critical role in the successful implementation of the enhanced transparency framework. I would like to thank the group for their invaluable contribution to the climate transparency. The Secretariat remains committed to supporting the CGE in their ongoing efforts in providing targeted transparency support to developing countries through hands-on regional training, webinars, guidance materials, technical tools, etc. So the upcoming CGE compilation of NDC indicators drawing from the first BTRs will provide an easy reference to information on NDC indicators used by parties and lay a solid foundation for more targeted supports on NDC formulation and progress tracking going forward. I encourage all participants to share your experience and insights today. Together, let us ensure that the ETF remains a system of accountability, a catalyst for cooperation, and a driver of ambition. So thank you.
Thank you, Julia and Shuhong, for those scene-setting remarks, giving us the importance of really coming up with NDCs that are relevant to our NDCs and that will also help us tracking our NDCs. So it's quite important, and to also look at the simplicity of really indicators when we choose them to track our NDCs. So thank you for that. And also as the CGE, I would like to also thank the UNFCCC Secretariat for their continued support. The CGE has been dedicated over the years to assisting developing countries with technical advice and support on transparency-related matters. And we also remain committed to supporting all developing countries in their journey as they implement the enhanced transparency framework. I look forward to your rich discussions. Once again, if you, Shihong and Julia, you need to leave, we fully understand, and yeah, you may be excused. We understand the busy schedules at this time. Yeah. Thank you, Julia and Shihong. I'll move closer to the panel. So colleagues, before we begin with our panel discussion for today, I would like you to take part in a short icebreaker survey. This will also help us as the CG to know your background and areas of interest in relation to NDC indicators. There's a QR code on the screen. Please scan it to join the Menti survey. We'll be asking a few questions just to see how many of you have some knowledge around NDC tracking and indicators. Let's see, I think just about everyone has joined. So we have the first question there. Which of the following best describes your background or role? I would like to understand the different roles and backgrounds of the colleagues in the room. We can see that we have a couple of NDC tracking experts. Some are others, maybe not necessarily in this field. Okay, and then what would you like to hear about NDC indicators in today's discussion? What would be important for you to understand about indicators and tracking NDCs? Okay, we see many wanting to understand how international supports, such as the CGE, could assist with tracking of NDCs. Some would like to know about the challenges countries face in identifying and tracking NDCs, which is something that is a common challenge across many countries. Some would also like to see some of the examples of the NDCs. The third one, what has been the impact Oh, okay. Are there any specific questions you would like to ask to the panelists today? So we have a panelist that's going to talk about NDCs and indicators. Do you have any specific questions for them? So that they prepare well for those questions. Please type them, and if we can see them on the screen. First question, what has been the impact of implementing NDCs at a global level? This is very important to understand. Challenges in reviewing NDC indicators. How could support providers better support countries to track their NDCs? Which tools does the CGE have for NDC monitoring and indicators? We also heard from Shuhong that we are also working on training materials on NDC indicators and coming up with indicators that are relevant to different NDCs. How CGE expert support can be accessed by countries. So it means that in our interventions today as the CG members, we should also give information on how the support from us could be accessed by developing countries. And then can you tell us about how you establish indicators for your countries, or maybe from our panel experts, how they came up with indicators for tracking their NDCs, more information on that. So I think this should be fine. I believe that we get the gist of what would like, of the background in the room and what the participants would like to ask our experts today. So I thank you for that, colleagues. And with that, we will then begin with our panel discussion. So firstly, we have, for the first panel session, we have our two speakers, Juliana Bempa from Ghana and Leah Kali from Lebanon. So Juliana and Leah, if I may ask you some key questions, what lessons can be drawn from your national experience in identifying and tracking NDC indicators? Maybe we'll start with you, Juliana, then Leah.
Thank you very much, Sandra, and good afternoon, colleagues. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for putting this program together. So I would also want to walk you through our journey in identifying and then how we've been able to track our NDCs.
We are having some technological challenges with this. Oh, there we go.
All right, thank you. I believe we all understand that Ghana as a country, of course, we've been a party to the convention, to the KP, and also to the Paris Agreement. And for us to be able to track our NDCs effectively, there's a need to have a very robust institutional structure in place. And so on our part, we have the Ministry of Environment, Science, and Technology doing the coordination activity of our NDCs when it comes to the NDC preparation. And then we also have the Ministry of Finance also looking at how we mobilize finance and then track issues of finance within the country. We have the National Development Planning Commission also supporting us when it comes to development of indicators and mainstreaming of climate change issues into the national development processes. Then we have the ministries, the departments, the agencies, as well as the assemblies also supporting us when it comes to issues of tracking. And then we have the non-state actors also contributing to this space, and then we have the EPA also coordinating when it comes to issues of NDC tracking. maybe the technical people, if you can control.
Yeah, so maybe I can also change the slide from the back. So if you want to go to
Yes.
next, just tell me next. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so in domesticating issues of these global discussions, aside the institutional structures that we have in place, we also have designated focal persons at the different institutions. And so they also help when it comes to coordination of we being able to track our NDCs. And then one great thing that this year we have been able to do is to be able to come up with an act, which is Act 1124/2025. And in this particular act, for the very first time, we have the issues of climate change captured in there. Hitherto, we didn't have an act that has climate change as a standalone focus area, but this time we have it, and this is also helping us, giving institutions mandate to be able to report on NDCs. Okay, so when it comes to our emissions, as a country, if you look at the slide, right from 1990 to, which is the base year, to our current year, or the latest year, inventory year, which is 2022, you realize that there's been an increase when it comes to our emissions, close to about 214% increase. And this is based on the GHG emissions as well as our GDP and then the population. These are the three main indicators that we used so far as the inventory is concerned. And then which areas are the highest emitters when it comes to GHG emissions. Taking the latest year, which is 2022, we realized that electricity generation contributed about 15% towards the entire share. And then we have it being followed by transport contributing about 9-10% of the total emissions. We have livestock contributing 10%, and then land use contributing 12% of the share. We also looked at the top 10 key categories in terms of levels and trends. The total key categories we had 231 of them based on level and trend, with 22 key categories from the approach 2, which is the level, and then we have the combined, we have 10 key categories, and these are mainly from the energy, agriculture, waste, and then the land sectors. When it comes to the GHG emission projections, we considered three main scenarios. We looked at without measures, we looked at with measures scenario, and then with additional measures scenario, as you can see on the slide. On the NDC targeting, we have 2030 as our target, with 2019 as our base year target. We're looking at two-tier fixed level type, and with this we have 25 million ton CO2 equivalent when it comes to the tier 1 or the unconditional target, where we focused on 9 palms. And then with the tier 2, we're looking at 39 million ton CO2 equivalent. And so as part of the conditional target, we're looking at how we can reduce our emissions by 24 million tons CO2 equivalent with carbon market transactions. And in tracking of our NDCs overall, when we look at the latest year of our inventory being 2022, the overall progress that we have been able to do is 45%, with the most recent value of the indicator that we used as in 2022, contributing to about 28.7 million tons CO2 equivalent. And the indicator that we used in tracking here is the net GHG emission reduction. For the tier 1 NDC progress, we also been able to reduce about 15.5 million tons CO2 equivalents. That is about 63%. And then with the tier 2, which is basically on how we're using carbon market transactions to reduce our emissions, we have been able to do about 33%. On the policies and measures that support our NDC target, we focused on 12 PALMs, which mainly are coming from the energy sector, where we had 5 PALMs, transport 2 of them, forestry 2, and then waste 1, and then we also have IPPU also contributing just 1 action. And these we think are the most transformative actions that had to be focused on. On the role of Article 6 in achieving our Tier 2 NDC target, we're looking at how we'll be able to reduce our emissions again by 39.4% by 2030. And currently we have been able to do our first transfer. We did that somewhere in July. And it was on a cook stove project where we transferred about 11,733 tons CO2 equivalents based on a cook stove project. We haven't done the CA yet. We're waiting, and then during our BTR2, we'll be able to effect all those CAs. Some key lessons learned. We realized that during this period, without a dedicated team, we wouldn't be able to achieve most of these successes. And so we feel we should also have a continuous training of teams to be able to support in this NDC tracking. We also ensure that the institutions have legal mandates, they have the capacity and have well-defined roles. And then another thing that we're also looking at to ensure that there's a direct connection between the teams that work on the GAG inventory, the team that work on the NDC, the BTR, and even Article 6. There has to be a direct connection between these teams for you to be able to come up with a good product at the end of the day. And then we're also looking at data management portal, where we have developed a data hub. And within this data hub, we have a 3-monthly data collection system or platform where we collect data and make sure that the system is populated at all times. And then we also ensure that there is continued identification of new data sets for improvement. And then for any area of improvements that have been captured in our BURs, we ensure that we put in place the right measures to be able to implement them. We're also looking at tools and models. For example, we have been able to develop NDC tracking tool, which helps us to be able to track the level of implementation of our NDCs in different institutions where the EPA coordinates these activities. We're also looking at how we can have a joint reporting system where we bring all these institutions together to be able to help us when it comes to the reporting. So that's what I have for you on the lessons learned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliana, for that detailed presentation on Ghana's BTR and how you're really tracking your NDC. You've come up with a very simple indicator, percentage reduction towards your 2030 target. You've also touched on the importance of really formalizing institutional arrangement for, data collection and analysis, and also some of the lessons learned. So Leah, if I may move over to you also to share your experience with us from Lebanon on identifying and tracking NDC indicators. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. And I think what we will be presenting, so Juliana already said most of the things that I wanted to say, but this, confirms that we are all having the same concerns, the same challenges. So solutions, it's true that there's not one solution fits all, but I'm sure that there's a lot of commonalities that we can tackle. So Lebanon is a party to the Paris Agreement, and we're good in reporting. At least if there's something we're good at, we're very diligent in reporting on time and improving our BURs, BTRs, or NCs under each cycle. So we have already submitted and prepared 4 NCs, 4 BURs, 1 BTR, and we are currently finalizing BTR2. So a lot of improvements have been ticked from BUR1 to BTR1, but also a lot of items in the improvement plan are still being carried one cycle after the other. Because there's a lot of, I think there's a big responsibilities on governments and on countries to organize this. And the challenges are there, right? And I think I will see everybody nodding on the challenges. Institutional arrangements, right? So institutional arrangements, how to arrange, how to involve the right people, how to keep the right people, how to find the data, but also how to have access to the data, how to validate the data. You know, we have 4 different energy demand numbers in Lebanon. And energy demand is one of our core indicators. How do you align and how do you agree on using one energy demand across different policy documents so that your NDC reflects your national circumstances? So availability and accessibility of data is quite a challenge. It's true over time we could create new data sets, validate new data sets, but there are some challenges that go beyond just the GG inventory or NDC tracking. Institutional arrangements, the legalization of institutional arrangements. We all have our institutional arrangements, and it's working in a way or another in a very informal, organic way. There's a community of practice, I think, in each of our countries where things happen, but how to institutionalize this. And by institutionalizing it, will it make it easier or more complicated? So a lot of lessons learned, and I will just go right to the lessons learned. I have 6 lessons that I would like to share with you, and that will reflect the challenge and the lesson in the same time. So first lesson learned, tracking NDCs means different things to different people. So when we started doing the NDC, we were very ambitious, right? We wanted to put all the targets out there. So if you can see here, so we had an unconditional target and a conditional target over 3 different layers. Total emission reduction, percent renewable energy, and percent decrease in demand. So as you can see in yellow, there's like around 10 numbers. And then we were very happy with the 10 numbers. But when BTR1 came, and then we had to report, then all types of questions came up. So what do we compare it to? If I have a number, let's say 20% emission reduction, is it versus BAU scenario? Is it versus conditional? Is it versus unconditional? And then you know all the red flags. Don't report the conditional targets. This is conditional. Just stick to the unconditional. No clear guidance, a lot of south-south really dialogues, trying to understand what others are doing. Maybe other countries know more than you do, so you really start doubting yourself in terms of, are we doing what everybody else is doing? And then what unit? What unit do you use to report your indicator? Is it absolute terms or percentage? Because I have both. I have a gigagram amount, but I also have a percentage from BAU. Is it kilowatt hour for renewables or percent from renewable? Is it from demand or from supply? These were details. When we wrote the NDC, we didn't imagine that we would be facing 2 years or 4 years later with these very specific and very detailed challenges. And also, which type of data do we use? Do we use IEA data? Do we use national data? Even if we don't really, I have my question marks on the data, but it's government data, right? But what about the IEA or the FAUSTAT data? And then NDC 3.0 came along, and the lessons were learned, right? So this is, for example, the table, one of the CTF tables. Sorry, it's small. But just as you can see, so these 10 indicators that we had, or 10 numbers that we had in the NDC, turned out to be around 32 numbers that we have to report in the BTR. And this is my NDC 3.0. I have limited myself to the minimum. No sectoral target, just one renewable energy target, one GHG target, so that I don't face the same problem later. And I've learned it. So now I know what to track, how to track it, and at least I know also from where to get the data and got everybody prepared so that once I want to report, everybody is on board. Number 2, lesson learned number 2. One NDC, many indicators, and it's not just mitigation. So what my boss thinks it is, it's one NDC indicator, one mitigation indicator, easy, Leah, you can do it. What the COP thinks it is, one NDC indicators, okay, we have many mitigation indicators, but easy, you can do it. It's mitigation, right, indicators. But then you open the MPGs and you open, and then you realize that your mitigation indicators are actually the compilation of 5 different, at least the 5 IPCC sectors. It's a bottom-up approach. You have to do it each one so that you get your overall mitigation target. Then you have your adaptation indicators. At least in Lebanon, we have 7 sectors, priority sectors, 166 adaptation indicators. So we will, it's much more than this one NDC, one mitigation indicator. And then the difficult part also, the support received, and this is not just one indicator. And the support received, the sentence on support received has 3 main items. It's support received on financial, capacity building, technology, and it's not only the received, but the needed. And then, you know, you start with a thread, and then it grows into, you start with a small tree, and then it grows into a huge tree with different branches. And I think this is really the challenge, not to focus only, and the lesson learned in the same time, not to focus only on the mitigation target. There are a lot of different targets that we need as developing parties to highlight in our BTRs, to put out there, to show progress or lack of progress, but also to show the support received, give credit to those who are supporting us, and highlight the gaps where maybe we should need more support. And these BTRs became type of shopping lists for funders, for embassies, for multilateral funds, for donors to know what we need and where the gap exists. So for example, these are the 166 adaptation indicators that we're trying to track, but that also are part of the BTR. Third lesson learned, be specific. The indicator is in the details. So this is an example how one of our adaptation priorities looked like in NDC 2.0. Strengthen the agricultural sector resilience to enhance Lebanon agricultural output in a climate-smart manner. How do we report this? How to measure the strengthened impact, right? What are the priority agricultural outputs? Is it all? Is it only cash crops? Is it vulnerable crops? What is a climate-smart manner? So we're saying in a climate-smart manner. What is included in a climate-smart manner? So when we were writing the new NDC also, so we learned that we have to be much more specific. So let's say talk about a specific irrigation system, water distribution system, terraces, greenhouses, increase agricultural production and productivity. So we're separating production and productivity. Provide by how? By providing incentives and outreach on climate-specific adapted genetic materials. So we tried as much as possible to be more, if you want, inclusive, so that the indicator is still not a smart, I mean, the indicator will not be a smart indicator yet. But at least we're trying to be more detail-oriented so that it's easier to track. 4, institutional arrangements are extremely, extremely important and essential. So we created task forces under the CBIT project that was supported by Jeff and UNDP. So this community of practice that I was talking about, all these informal and organic groups that meet and share data, we institutionalized them in terms of sectorial task forces, and that was extremely important to collect all these data. Not because they have to collect, by the way. It's just because they need the data as much as we do. So if everybody needs the data on percent of forests increased since 2015, believe me, everyone will work around the clock to get this indicator, so that I get my indicator, but each one of them, those who are reporting to CCD, CBD, FAO, everyone is benefiting from these indicators that we're creating. And the next step is to actually embed this in a climate change law, which we will be developing. Capacity building is also very, very essential, although sometimes we lose the capacities that we've built, because it's hard to retain people who became competent and who now know more than the others. So unfortunately, they tend to leave to the private sector, to UN organizations, especially during the last years. We faced a big economic crisis, but we never give up. We've always building capacities, and these people, the people who are trained, are actually the data holders. And the more we involve them, the more likely it is for them to share data, because now they understand how the data is being used. And with time, we're really trying to integrate more and more people, not just from ministries, but from academic sector, UN agencies, donors, and sometimes these people hold more data than actually government institutions. So capacity building is essential, while technology is not. Very bad experience with technology. We are really trying to digitalize all this. So we developed this very nicely colored digital platform. You create the username and the password. Everyone forgets how to log in, and their username and password. You try as much as possible to train on how to integrate the data. I don't know if it's a culture thing, or if there's resistance to digitalization, or if this is, there should be a prerequisite from the government to, if the government is already in their digitalization journey, maybe it would be easier for us to digitalize this. But we're way ahead, and we're having really difficulties in getting ownership or getting people encouraged, even if it's too simple. So today we have the platform, but we created a modality in this platform to just submit Excel sheets. So people still like to use Excel sheets, or to scan a letter, or data on a scanned letter and submit it in the platform. They could have easily submitted it by email. So this is a layer that is taking lots of effort, and today I don't see how it's helping, at least in our national context. So I would pause it. I would pause the digitalization, work on institutionalization, even if it's, the traditional way. And then one day we would be ready for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah, for that detailed presentation. I mean, you've really demonstrated to us how complicated it can be to track an NDC. We come up with these many targets when we develop the NDCs, and then later on when you look at the MPGs, then you realize that there's so much information that you need to provide for every selected indicator that you have. And this also brings the importance of really having the transparency practitioners involved in the NDC development, so that they can also advise, because they are the ones ultimately who have to do the tracking in the end, and who have to make sure that that information is simple, and that we just think of NDC tracking in the context of mitigation, but there's also adaptation, and also tracking the support that has been received, and that's needed as well in the context of developing countries, but also provided in the context of developed countries. So thank you for that. So with that, we'll move to our second round of the panel discussion, where we have our two CG members Manjit Adakal from Nepal, and Marcelo Rocha from Brazil. So I would like to ask you, CG members, what perspectives can the CG share on identifying and tracking NDC indicators with also all that we've heard from our two panel speakers? So I'll start with you, Marcelo, and then you, Manjit.
Thank you, Sandra, and good afternoon, colleagues. So my name is Marcelo Rocha. I am from Brazil. I am a CG member, but I also work as a consultant for the Brazilian government and other governments as well in establishing or helping them to establish their Mavian transparency system. Before talking specifically about the CG, I just want to echo what we have heard here, because this is the challenges as you have identified both in Ghana and Lebanon. We have also seen in many other countries as well. When we talk to countries, they report very similar situations that you have reported. And then I think we are kind of all together by learning by doing. We are having the first BTRs, we are having the challenges to put the numbers that we want to have in the BTR in terms of the indicators, and I think the questions that you are facing, other countries are also facing. So just to assure that this is a learning by doing exercise where we are now presenting the first BTRs, and with that, I hope we will improve over time during the next submission, but also now between also the NDCs. And I like the message that where possible, try to make simple, because otherwise we can get ourselves in a very, very complicated situation. So I think this is something that I want to highlight. As a CG, we try to support developing countries in many ways. We will have a presentation later by my colleague where you will see what kind of offers we have developed, what kind of instruments and training, etc. But I think for us it's also important to listen to the countries to understand what their needs are and try to then offer to them some advice based on the real needs of the countries. And coming specifically for some examples of the indicators that we saw here also. For example, if I choose one single indicator, and for example, the case of economy-wide NDC targets, the mitigation ones, then it's very simple or straightforward to go directly to the GNG inventory, right? But then, of course, when you arrive in the GAG inventory, you have the challenges around how to have a good inventory in place, how to ensure that the information that you have to collect to produce your estimates, the emission estimates, you can assess those informations most likely, then we will enter in a debate of the quality of the inventory. So even if your indicator is simple, when you go for the source of this information, that is your national GAG inventory, then the issues, the challenge will appear. So when you choose to have a large amount of indicators, and I'm not saying that you should not do that, you have to be aware that this also will amplify the challenge that you have. And sometimes we feel that, again, could be simple for the purpose of the reporting of the NDC. Of course, for the national purpose of planning your actions, then of course you will need a much larger amount of indicators. I can give the example of Brazil. If we go for our BTR, you will see that we have a very straightforward indicators that is based on GNG inventory. But now internally in Brazil that we are discussing the implementation of the NDC, and we need to track the actions behind this target, we are facing the difficulty because we need to have much larger amount of indicators. We are establishing sectorial plans, mitigation sectorial plans, and we, within the ministries, within the institutions that will be responsible for the implementation of these plans, they are bringing to the table a large amount of indicators. And behind that, again, they will have challenges in get all the information that they need and to use this information to assess if we are moving in the right direction or not. So try to make it simple, but at the same time, you will end up in some point in time in some challenges. So the challenges will exist. Nevertheless, I think it's possible to overcome this challenge over time with improvements. Finally, I want to also emphasize something that we have heard from both Ghana and Lebanon, is that the institutional arrangements in place are critical. And these also, I think, will improve over time because governments, they will change, the other people will come with different ideas, but at the end of the day, something needs to continue. You cannot change every 4 years or whatever number of years, everything. So you have to have a basis, an institutional arrangement in place that can be sustainable over many, many years, have the people there to make things work, and have all the legal basis. So when somebody arrives, they will know what to do, who they need to go through to get the information. So if we can maintain these institutional arrangements in place, and of course change them as necessary because we need to improve them or because new governments will come in place and they want to give different directions or do things a little bit different, that's not a problem. But the basis needs to be there, and we have to ensure this. Otherwise, a target for 2030, a target for 2035, it will be very difficult to track if we always keep moving things, changing things, and then there is always a learning curve that you have to go when you start something new. So I think the institutional arrangements that have been mentioned are critical, and I want to emphasize that not only that they have to exist, but they have to be sustainable over many, many years in terms of money, in terms of people, and all the legal requirements behind them. Once they are there, no matter who will come, they will know what to do. And of course, not that they will start immediately doing things right, but they will be in a better position compared to when you have to come and start all over again from zero because for whatever reason, you don't want to use what has been established before. Let me stop for the time being, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Marcelo, for that, for those clear perspectives. A quick one from you as well, Majid, before we go into the Q&A on really some of the perspectives from the CG.
Yeah, yes, again, I think I want to emphasize that the CG are doing a huge effort to listen to countries, the challenge that we have. This is why the surveys that most of you receive from the CG, the Secretariat, I would like to emphasize the importance to respond to that, because then we're going to have a much better assessment of what we can offer to you. And we can produce, as we will see in the presentation of my colleague, different materials that we hope can target your problems. But we know the problems because we are facing also the same problems, but it's very important that we listen to you. So I want to emphasize that from the perspective of the CG, the communication that we are trying to establish with countries, particularly through the surveys and questionnaires. I know sometimes it's difficult to respond. Oh, once again, the CG is asking me for information. But please try to respond to when you have this kind of request, because it's very important to us to receive from you what are the needs, what you think is more useful that we can offer to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. So we'll now go to a round of questions and answers to our panelists. If maybe anyone from the floor would like to have a question. Oh, Majid, I see you also would like to add as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra. Good afternoon, colleagues. So my name is Manjeet. I'm from Nepal, a CG member. I was very much involved while preparing the NDC of Nepal. My colleague Rajan is there in the second row. Maybe Rajan, you can raise your hand. He was involved more in terms of preparing the BTR. No, after Marcelo, I don't think there is much to add. He's a resource, he's a legacy in this process in terms of the transparency and in the overall negotiation. But I think when we were hearing from Liab and Juliana, I think that really resonates the challenges that we have been facing in our countries in terms of preparing the BTR, but also selecting the indicators. And I fully agree with you, Liab. We were preparing the NDC, we really doesn't think about the indicators at that time. In some contexts, like we want to be so ambitious because we want to include everything that we have been doing and may not even be in a very organized mode. And then when it comes about at the time of reporting, then unpacking all those targets, if we have to do, then that's really a challenge. I think looking at the BTR that has been submitted as of now, it gives us a very broad picture in terms of the experience, and I think that certainly helps as we move ahead in terms of the countries who are coming up, but also when we move to the second BTR. I agree with Marcelo. I think the less the BTR we have, the less the indicators that we have, and if the countries who have absolute emission reduction targets, that's much easier. I think broadly looking at the NDC that we have as of now, we have seen like a different kind of indicators that countries have reflected for those who has an absolute emission reduction target, the annual total net GHG emission, or the GHG reduction relative to the base year. Also, the countries who have come up with the carbon intensity targets have a different GDP emission per capita, energy intensity, and so on. For countries who have come up with a policy-based target, I think there are few who have kind of gone very much in depth with many of the sectorial indicator, and maybe later realizing that it may be very difficult in terms of reporting when we have more indicators. I exactly agree in terms of the challenges that countries are facing in terms of the data gap, and fully agree that in many circumstances, it's not only the government office, but also the university or different institution who hold that. And when people leave, I think that's the challenge that we have seen in many countries. Also the baseline recalculation, and that was one thing that we also did in Nepal, that requires the update to the indicators. In terms of also, I think for a few areas, like in terms of forest, where the country may have a different definition in terms of the forest, and we have also seen how the country struggle to have a consistent indicators on that. But I think having all these challenges, there are also some strong emerging good practices that we have been seeing. Countries using the national GHG inventory as a backbone for the mitigation indicator in particular, aligning with the IPCC guideline, also choosing the indicator that are already linked with the national statistical system, so that it helps countries to move forward. And also, I think there are a few countries who have selected the indicator that are fully in line with the NDC targets, and that helps obviously in terms of reporting it. That's more in terms of, as we said earlier, the indicators that are linked with the absolute emission targets. We have also seen, I think, I was trying to go in depth in terms of the adaptation indicators as well, and which obviously is not mandatory, but I think we have also seen few countries who have the emerging, I think the list in terms of the outcome indicator, like the number of population that are exposed, or the improved number of resilience, or the sectorial indicators on different theme of sectors, or the process related indicators. And also I think countries are very much looking forward in terms of the negotiation that will lay out in terms of the global goal and indicator, one of the major discussion that's happening there. But I think overall, when we see this, the capacity gap or the institutional gap, I think that comes very strongly among the BTR that has been submitted, and I think that's where the role of CGE remains very important in terms of the support or guiding countries to foster the capacity in identifying these targets and the indicator that are through the common reporting format. Also the functional national coordination system, or how that indicator can work best in terms of NDC implementation plan. And in case of Nepal, when we developed the NDC implementation plan, which is not a required document in terms of the international process, that was for ourselves to unpack the NDC target, and we developed an indicator much in detail across all the thematic area in the NDC implementation plan, but that remains a document at the national level that helps our sectorial ministry to guide implementation. But when we use it for the international reporting, maybe we have to be more careful with all the lesson learned. And just wanted to stress in terms of the digital tools, and also I think for us to be more updated in terms of the available technology and the resources, so that it helps maybe make our life much easier in terms of future reporting. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the message is very clear. I think it's good practice when it comes to indicators to just keep them simple and make your life easier. Don't, well, I mean, it's nationally determined, of course, but the more indicators you have, the more complex it becomes when you have to track your NDC in the BTR. So with that, I would like to also open the floor for a round of questions and clarity, if it's requested, to our panel members. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions. Any question? With all the information shared? Going once? Twice? Marcelo says don't be shy. So don't be shy. Anything online, Yali? Anyone online?
Yes, I think there's a speaker online who wished to ask a question. Maybe
Yes.
we can put him on screen.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's do that.
thank you.
Hi, I don't know if I can ask a question for Ms. Kay.
Yes, please proceed.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question regarding indicators around equity and fairness in the NDC. And I wanted to know if that is something that, well, the question is asked for Ms. Kay in the experience of Lebanon, but any of the panel members, if you have experience around these indicators for equity and fairness in the NDCs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions online? Or it's just that one? Okay. Anyone from our panel members would like to take that? Marcelo?
Yeah, I can start because this is a very good question, and we are facing, or we are making the same question in Brazil. Just to give the context, we are, as I said, establishing the National Sectorial and Adaptation Plan, and in each plan we're going to have mitigation and adaptation actions. And we also have what we call a cross-cutting strategy on equity and just transition. And then when we try to identify indicators for the equity or just transition, the challenge that we have now is to connect them with the actions, the mitigation and adaptation actions that are within the sectorial plans. Otherwise, it will be very more complex to track a mitigation action, to track adaptation action, and not track what are the impacts of those actions in terms of equity just transition, or to track a different indicators for just transition and equity, and not connect with the actions that are being taken in terms of mitigation and adaptation. So I think the challenge nowadays is to make sure that everything is consistent, and whatever we decide to have in terms of mitigation adaptation actions and the corresponding indicators are also consistent or will dialogue with the indicators that we also want to have to track just transition and equity. So there is no simple answer to say choose this or that. I think at the end of the day, you want to make sure that what are the actions, both in terms of mitigation or adaptation, that you are taking, you are able to track them properly, and also in the context of whatever are the other strategies that you have. As I said, in the case of Brazil, there is this cross-cutting strategy, and we want to make sure that everything is consistent, and the information that you are able to collect will demonstrate what are the different impacts that we are having in terms of all the indicators.
Thanks for that, Marcelo. Maybe if I may also come back to you, Leah and Juliana. What are some of the challenges that you still have in your countries in defining measurable indicators in accordance with your own, national circumstances, and how can also collaborative work help around tracking indicators? Maybe start with you, Leah, then Juliana.
Yeah. I wanted to complement a little bit what Marcelo was saying about so the fairness and the equity. So there's fairness and equity of a country vis-a-vis the international community, and this is very narrative, right? And in the NDC, in the ICTU table, each country has to explain how they see their NDC as fair, ambitious, and equitable. And this is based on national circumstances and the capacities in all this. I think it's also very important to reflect the concept of equity and fairness within the country itself. How do you mainstream, how do you focus on vulnerable population, on displaced population, on women and youth, and this is how you mainstream it within your targets, within your indicators. Yeah. Also being fair and equitable within the geographical distribution of your actions, of your implementation of the NDC, involving some national levels and central level. So the idea of fairness and equity, I think, goes beyond to what we represent to the international community, but also walking the talk. Walking the talk and really reflecting this within our own countries.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So to also touch a bit on the issues of equity and fairness, I think these are cross-cutting issues that we usually look at in terms of maybe response measures, in terms of just transition, economic diversification, and even gender mainstreaming. So we consider these as cross-cutting issues, and we also have to ensure that there's always kind of a connection when it comes to this. I quite remember that when we're developing our indicators, we came up with 51 of them. And then my director said, so how are we going to track all these 51 indicators? No, it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to track all these 51 indicators. Sandra, if you recall, even when we went to Victoria Falls, I had this discussion with you that we have 51 indicators. How are we going to track all this? And then she suggested that why don't we prioritize and then come up with the one that we feel it will be easy to track. And so we should always keep it simple. And so we decided to look at the net GHG emissions, and then we track it. And another thing that as a country we have been able to do is to come up with what we call the Ghana's Climate Ambitious Reporting Program that looks at institutions, it looks at skills, it looks at the governance structure, and then we look at how we can coordinate effectively with the institutions, how we can make sure that skills are continuously built, and then issues of IT and archiving system. Because you have people working in an institution and then they keep moving from one institution to the other. So memory is lost. So we have this kind of IT and an archiving system in place, and then also a good governance structure in place, it really helps the country. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Juliana and Leah, indeed. Let me now then go back to you, Manjit. If you could also just elaborate for us on the available support. Oh, is there a question? Okay. Oh, there's a hand back there. Over to you.
Hello. Hi. My name is Valentino Kimber from the RMI. So RMI is pretty new in the this reporting journey, and looking at what CGE can provide in terms of support. Is there a way that CGE can support to countries to map out where we are now in terms of institutional arrangements and data quality, to have a clear way forward from where we are right now? Right now, we're still highly dependent on consultants in terms of doing this report. So, like many others, have a little capacity retained. It would be useful to have a body such as CGE or other relevant bodies to help us in our improvement plan. Thank you.
Thank you. It's like you read my mind because the last question to our CGE member was actually to elaborate on the available support from the CGE to developing countries in implementing the ETF. And if you could also address the question directly as well, Manjit. We just need to wrap up maybe in 5 minutes just to explain.
Sure, thank you. No, I think we can address that question as well through the slides, because that was the last part of the session, that to present the few slides as well. If we can move, yeah, perfect. Thank you, and really appreciate. I think I think the experience from the RMI, and that's exactly for many other countries. I come from the least developed country, and there are many within us who have been very late, even in terms of communicating the national communication. There are very few who were able to come forward with the biannual update reports, but then because of the flexibility that also exists for the LDC and SITs, but the way we have been moving forward is what we have realized in the later stage is the more we keep using the flexibility, the more we delay the reporting, it also affects us in terms of our planning, in terms of our capacity building. So the best way to build capacity is to engage, yes, and you learn by doing maybe mistake on that. So that's how we have been inspiring. So I think the concerns are exactly similar where we are. So I think we all need to work together on that. So briefly, I think addressing that question as well as what CGE has been doing, you can see there in the slide. This is one of the institutional one of the committee that is established here, which has a legacy in this process. Yes, CGE was established in 1999, much ahead and under the convention, and now we have also been operating under the Paris Agreement. Even though the member has been replaced and has been taking lesson, but we are under the able hand of the Secretariat, where we have a rich experience from what the CGE have done in past, in particular for the supporting developing countries in the reporting that were there under the UNFCCC, and now under the Paris Agreement as well, the capacity building needs assessment that you may have filled in the survey many times, also the knowledge delivery and many knowledge product, which I will also show you here in the slide as well. Also the collaboration and engagement with many institutions as well as many other constituted bodies that exist within this process. So it's also about the more the CGE hear about the challenges that the countries are facing, then the CGE can come forward with a solution to how to address that as well. So it's very important that we know where countries are facing difficulties, so that we can have a such a problem-oriented solution and the targeted support that fit for countries. You can see here the pictures where a number of events were organized. Also, we co-organized with many other partners. There were 9 regional hands-on training and the workshops that were organized. I think the colleagues were also referring earlier to help facilitate the preparations of the BTRs by developing countries. You can see the number here that were attended by 325 national experts representing 128 developing countries. There were 2 series of the regional webinars that were organized, and also in a different time zone to help get attendance. Also, it was attended by 313 national experts. What we were also trying to do was, since at the country level, we do all understand when it comes about the reporting, for many countries, it may be a same institution who looks after the Article 6, and there are more reporting requirements there as well. So we are also trying to work together with the Article 6 requirement so that it helps as a package for countries. And specific for Article 6, there are regional the Regional Collaboration Center of the UNFCCC has been very prominent, reaching out to the countries, and that's where the CGE has also been taking forward the activities. You can also see the pictures, but also I think the lesson learned from many of those events that were there. Also, I think on the last slide, the products, the technical materials, the CGE annual capacity building need assessment report and the biennial stock tech survey report for 2025, and that's where I think Marcelo was earlier referring about the survey. That's one that really helps us to understand the challenges that countries are facing in terms of reporting. Also the CG regional workshop report where we try to get a compilation of the experience that countries share, the challenges that countries are sharing, and that are there in the report, so you can access them from the website. In terms of the upcoming technical material, the compilation, the examples of the indicators for mitigation and adaptation component, which is under preparation, and that's where I was using many of those information when I was sharing the experience of different countries. Also the compilation of the examples on the application of flexibility provision in preparation to the BTRs, and how countries are using the different the flexibility that are inscribed in the reporting template, so that the other countries can also learn from that. You can see the pictures of some of these products, but based on the requirement, I think that's what we reflect in our regular meeting. We can how we can accept those requests and what are the challenges that the countries are facing. I think this is more of a learning by experience, and the more we know about the challenges, the more we can be proactive to help countries to address those challenges. Sandra, I will stop here and maybe, yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Majid. Can we give a round of applause for our good panel discussion? As you can see, the CG is also doing so much to really help developing countries, and we do have some upcoming training material on identifying indicators that can help countries to track mitigation as well as adaptation components of their NDCs. So with that, colleagues, would like to ask you to do a quick interactive survey. Would like to hear your feedback and some of the suggestions for the CG. So it will not take more than 10 minutes. It's just the last part of our side event. Please scan the QR code, and then we will be asking you some few questions which will really help us as the CG to improve our work and respond to the needs of the developing countries. So please quickly scan through, and then let's do the questions. So before today, were you familiar with the consultative group of experts and its work? Are you only hearing about us today? Would like to believe that we are popular, but would like to hear from you. Yes, I see a couple saying they have participated in some few CG activities, and some saying it's the first time, and some saying it's really the first time they're learning about the CG. We're glad that now you know about the CG, and you know that you can get support from the CG if you are a developing country. Next question. Which activities or products do you find most useful or impactful in terms of capacity building? Which ones do you really find most impactful that will really help us prepare ourselves as we address the needs of the developing countries? So we see that many are leaning towards the regional hands-on training workshops. We also have some on the technical materials that help with the guidance as well, and one on the side events like these ones. Thank you. Next question. What are the topics of interest for 2026 for the support from the CGE? What would you like the CGE to focus on in 2026 as they support developing countries? Okay, we see On other, it's an open-ended question. We also see someone reporting on adaptation, including loss and damage. We see someone progress in implementing NDCs. We see someone preparing for the technical aspect reviews. This is very important. This is something also that's new to many countries undergoing this process. I don't see anything for the FMCP. It looks like many are good with that. But coming in the lead is really tracking the NDCs. So it seems like many countries still feel the need to be supported and to understand more on reporting on progress on implementing the NDCs. Next question, please. And then for our upcoming informal forum of the CG, what would be your topics of interest? We normally have that early in the year, sometimes back to back with our first meeting for the year. Development of tools, we see that. Give us some ideas, give us some ideas. BTR2, as we get ready for BTR2, we had even Lebanon saying they are almost finalizing the technical aspect review process, MRV, indicators linking to multi-level governance. Thank you for that. Those are good topics. Experience and lessons learned in preparing BTRs, the equity framework, tracking of NDCs, how to make use of the resources from the GEF, and MRV once again coming again. Measurement, reporting, and verification. Okay, we had those. We got those presentations from countries on tracking NDCs and BTR challenges. Yes, that's important that we also hear from countries that have done this. Thank you. Next question, please. Did this side event meet your expectations? Yes, no, very simple questions. Okay, we hear that we're getting yes. So it means, CG, we are doing good. It met your expectations. We are also glad to hear that, that it really met your expectations. It also helped you to understand indicators for tracking NDCs better. So it's good for us, and we thank you for that as well. In terms of the CG activities and material, what works well and what can be further improved? There's always room for improvement in anything, in any piece of work. There's always room for improvement. So what can we do better? How can we help you better? How can we better respond to your needs? Please tell us. Okay, GGA. GGA indicators, okay. A report of support received, okay. Perhaps a CG email newsletter, okay. CG members, there's a suggestion on having an email newsletter there. What more? If I don't see more suggestions, I believe that infographics are very useful in generating more information on this format and enhance the spread of information. So the use of infographics. Hands-on activities. Many feel that it's good when you have hands-on activities and exercises. Okay, tools and tracking materials, clinics or hotline for questions. So a CG hotline is being suggested here when we respond to questions or clinics. We got those. Thank you. Next question. Or is that the last question? Yes, that was the last question. So we just right on time with that, colleagues. I would really like to thank you for coming through to our side event and engaging. And I believe that we really had good discussions. And as we now prepare our second BTRs, we will learn from the lessons of the experience of the first BTRs. And of course, Many of us have also undergone the technical expert review process or will be undergoing that. So that will also help us to improve. As we have all heard from our panel discussions and as it is in the indicators, the process is really to facilitate improvement over time. You don't get it right the first time, but over time, it becomes better and better and better until we get there. So with that, thank you. And next time, we will be having better indicators in our BTRs. The session is closed.